Bod took the wallet, but did not open it. It contains money, enough to give you a start in the world, but nothing more. Bod said, I went to see Alonzo Jones today, but he wasn't there, or if he was, I couldn't see him. I wanted him to tell me about distant places he'd visited, islands and porpoises and glaciers and mountains, places where people dress and eat in the strangest ways. Bod hesitated. Then, those places, they're still there. I mean, there's a whole world out there. Can I see it? Can I go there? Silas nodded. There is a whole world out there, yes. You have a passport in the inner pocket of your suitcase. It's made out in the name of Nobody Owens, and it was not easy to obtain. Bod said, If I change my mind, can I come back here? And then he answered his own question. If I come back, it will be a place, but it won't be home any longer. Silas said, Would you like me to walk you to the front gate? Bod shook his head. Best if I do it on my own. Silas, if you're ever in trouble, call me. I'll come help. I, said Silas, do not get into trouble. No, I don't suppose you do, but still. It was dark in the crypt, and it smelled of mildew and damp and old stones, and it seemed, for the first time, very small. Bod said, I want to see life. I want to hold it in my hands. I want to leave a footprint on the sand of a desert island. I want to play football with people. I want, he said, and then he paused and he thought, I want everything. Good, said Silas. Then he put up his hands, as if he was brushing away the hair from his eyes. A most uncharacteristic gesture. He said, If it ever transpires that I am in trouble, I shall indeed send for you. Even though you don't get into trouble, as you say. There was something at the edge of Silas's lips that might have been a smile, and might have been regret, and might have just been a trick of the shadows. Goodbye then, Silas. Bod held out his hand, as he had when he was a small boy, and Silas took it, in a cold hand the color of old ivory, and shook it gravely. Goodbye, Nobody Owens. Bod picked up the little suitcase. He opened the door to let himself out of the crypt, walked back up the gentle slope to the path without looking back. It was well after the gates were locked. He wondered as he reached them if the gates would still let him walk through them, or if he would have to go back into the chapel to get the key, but when he got to the entrance he found the small pedestrian gate was unlocked and wide open, as if it was waiting for him, as if the graveyard itself was bidding him goodbye. One pale, plump figure waited in front of the open gate, and she smiled at him as he came toward her, and there were tears in her eyes in the moonlight. Hello, Mother, said Bod. Mistress Owens rubbed her eyes with a knuckle, then dabbed at them with her apron, and she shook her head. Do you know what you're going to do now? She asked. See the world, said Bod. Get into trouble, get out of trouble again, visit jungles and volcanoes and deserts and islands and people. I want to meet an awful lot of people. Mistress Owens made no immediate reply. She stared up at him. Then she began to sing a song that Bod remembered, a song she used to sing to him when he was a tiny thing, a song that she had used to lull him to sleep when he was small. Sleep, my little babby-o, sleep until you waken. When you wake, you'll see the world, if I'm not mistaken. You're not, whispered Bod, and I shall. Kiss a lover, dance a measure, find your name and buried treasure. Then the last lines of the song came back to Mistress Owens, and she sang them to her son. Face your life, its pain, its pleasure, leave no path untaken. Leave no path untaken, repeated Bod. A difficult challenge, but I can try my best. He tried to put his arms around his mother then, as he had when he was a child, although he might as well have been trying to hold mist, for he was alone on the path. He took a step forward through the gate that took him out of the graveyard. He thought he heard a voice say, "I am so proud of you, my son." But he might perhaps have imagined it. The midsummer sky was already beginning to lighten in the east. And that was the way that Bod began to walk, down the hill, towards the living people and the city and the dawn. There was a passport in his bag, money in his pocket. There was a smile dancing on his lips, although it was a wary smile, for the world is a bigger place than a little graveyard on a hill, and there would be dangers in it, and mysteries, and new friends to make, old friends to rediscover, mistakes to be made, and many paths to be walked before he would finally return to the graveyard, or ride with the lady on the broad back of her great gray stallion. But between now and then, there was life, and Bod walked into it with his eyes and his heart wide open. There's the lady on the gray. And that is the end. Very sweet. The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Now there's a acknowledgments in the end where he talks a little bit about what inspired the whole thing and how he slowly concocted it. And one of the most fascinating pieces, and the moment I say this, if you know what I'm talking about, it's gonna click for you too, I imagine. But apparently, the Graveyard Book was inspired by and based on another book called The Jungle Book. And if you remember the story of The Jungle Book, it's a story about a little boy who loses his family, and who spends his life raised in the jungle by all the animals in the jungle. And he has certain animals that look out for him and certain animals that want to hunt him and hurt him. And he has to learn how to survive in their world, much like Bod does in the graveyard. And there's a lot more comparisons you can find, but those are some of the main ones. And if you don't know The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling, it's a good one to check out because it does draw on a lot of the same ideas that the Graveyard Book does about a person trying to make their way in a world that is not easy or is out to get them, perhaps. So anyway, that is the Graveyard Book, something I really enjoyed reading to you, and I hope you find some other good stuff to read. And who knows, maybe I'll share this with somebody else and they can listen along as well.